morning, League fans. It's Monday morning for listeners in the Northern Hemisphere and in the Southern Hemisphere. You're hearing this on Tuesday morning, and today we've got a very special episode. We're talking to the General Manager of the European Rugby League, David Butler, about the World Cup qualifiers in the men, which are on in October. Before I continue, if you're listening on the podcast and you don't know what I'm talking about when I say good morning, League fans, because it could be the evening where you are or whatever, there is a 24-hour Rugby League radio station. It's rugbyleague.com, and we play a bit of music and we talk about Rugby League between the songs. We also have commentaries, and they might be about to move to our Twitch and Facebook and YouTube programs because we've had some technical issues doing Catalans and Hull FC. We've got the rights to Catalans and London home games, but just some technical issues at the weekend which might be somewhat eased if we switch to different platforms, but more on that as the week unfolds. So you can listen to this show days earlier than it is available as a podcast if you go to rugbyleague.com. So if you're listening on the podcast, please give us a try. Switch us on, rugbyleague.com. Surely you can't forget that URL. Okay, these qualifiers will be Serbia against Wales and France against Ukraine in Carcassonne on Tuesday, October 22. And then on Saturday, October 26, in Perpignan, there will be the winner. The winners will meet and the losers will meet. The winners will meet for a World Series place. The World Series is the final stop before the World Cup in Australia and Papua New Guinea in 2026. And the losers will meet for rankings points. So after this little break, we are going to hear from David Butler. He's going to talk about the World Cup qualifiers and other things that impact European Rugby League, including the possibility of a pan-European club competition. Whoa, how about that? Okay. I'm bright and early. I'm full of beans this morning. We'll be back after the break. As promised, Dave Butler from the European Federation, and before we started recording, we were debating whether it's pronounced schedule or schedule, so we've decided we're going to do 50-50 during this interview. We're talking about the men's World Cup qualifiers, which have just been announced as you listen to this. Now, how much work went into this, David? Obviously, it's not a straightforward process.
Well, before we could get to the schedule, Steve, we obviously the IRL went through a process of downgrading full members, some full members down to affiliate member status, and for this next World Cup, only full members are eligible to qualify. So, having got that process out of the way, we were able to work with those eligible to qualify still from Europe, which is France, Wales, Ukraine and Serbia, and we had a tender process which France were the winners in, so the tournament's going to be hosted in France, and we've used the world rankings to determine the schedule of matches on the based on world rankings.
So how does it? So is it? It's seeded? Is it seeded?
Yeah. So the current world rankings, we have France, Serbia, Wales and Ukraine in that order. So France are the designated home team against Ukraine, and Serbia are the designated home team against Wales. So they'll play semi-finals, and then the winners of the two semi-finals will meet to win the tournament, and the two losing semi-finalists will play a further game to obviously give them the opportunity to get another senior international under their belts.
And even though this chat is embargoed and we can't put it out until it's been announced, I'm sure anyone listening or a lot of people listening haven't heard what are we up to? Schedule. So the venues are Carcassonne and Perpignan. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So the first game is scheduled to take place on Tuesday, the 22nd of October, and the finals will be down in Perpignan on Friday the 26th, and I'm hoping I've got that right. I've not got any paperwork in front of us, but see the press release if I've got my dates wrong there. But two double headers for the French public to get the teeth into.
Obviously the World Cup has shrunk, the Men's World Cup, the number of teams in it, even though we haven't had I think maybe by the time this goes out, or certainly by the time hopefully the games are played, there will be an announcement on the World Cup. So how has that been kind of received? I know some members in South America and places like that are very dismayed at the shrinking of the World Cup. How has that been received in Europe?
Well, with mixed reception, as you would expect, but actually from a European perspective, all the full members have still got the opportunity to get there, as is the case for the Americas and the Middle East and Africa region, and the what do we call it, the Asia Pacific region as well. So the drawbridge hasn't been pulled up for any of the full members. From our tournament in October is the only continental tournament required. The winners of that go into the World Series in 25, which will see the leading team from the Americas join the eligible teams from Middle East and Africa and Asia Pacific for they'll play a round robin tournament for the final 2 berths at the World Cup. So whoever wins in Europe has got they've got to go through another tournament, but there are 2 spots from 4 available in that World Series.
We've got David Butler here from the European Rugby League. In a broader sense, there's been a fight or a battle over a number of years to get a full England team competing in a European men's tournament. Is that any closer to reality?
Yeah, discussions are ongoing. We met a couple of months ago in Manchester with the senior people at the RFL and senior people from the French Federation to look at a number of things, including what a European Championships can look like in the future. So obviously there's been plans announced for next year 25 for England to go down under. There's a World Cup in 26 and I believe there's a plan for 27, but I'm not sure if it's been announced yet. So we may be looking at 2028 before a full England team could play in a European Championship. But there is a genuine desire to do it from all sides of the party. Obviously, England is very keen to make sure its games are competitive. The rest of potential teams are very keen to play a full England team because that makes it a senior international. It gives them world ranking points as well. But at the same time, nobody wants to see high score lines and games played for the sake of it. Crowds don't want to see that, and obviously it's not a particularly exciting commercial prospect. So whilst that is potentially some time away, actually it gives everybody else some time now to focus and to grow and put the steps into place they need to be competitive when we get to that point.
I mean, in general sense, for people maybe listening in the Southern Hemisphere, how is the sport going in Europe? There's obviously what are your biggest challenges on a day-to-day basis to try and expand the rugby league in Europe?
Well, quite simply, it's cash. So money makes the world go round, and obviously, if we had more investment, we could do more things. There's lots of great fires burning and good news stories, but for every one of those, there's a lot of toil and struggle behind that. So we're sat here in Serbia at the minute, and the Serbia Federation continues to be one of the leading lights. Played 4 or 5 internationals every year, in the last World Cup cycle, and similarly over in the Netherlands, strong international scene at the end of the season, built on a domestic league. But we've got members that are still taking their first steps in terms of getting the domestic league off the ground. And I think sometimes we have, or some people have a mindset where we need that national team out straight away. The World Cup is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and the reality is that there is simply no better foundation for rugby league to establish itself in the country than a strong domestic competition.
We're back with David Butler from the European Rugby League. David, the last World Cup, I mean, it wasn't the panacea that a lot of people thought it would be around the world as far as a windfall of finances, a lift in profile, that sort of thing. Can you speak to us about the sort of the fallout and what's happened with the last World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the World Cup is the property of the International Rugby League, and we work hand in hand with them. So I'm not 100% familiar with all of the financial aspects of that. But clearly, when you postpone a global event by a year, and you lose the advantage of after COVID. Potentially that was going to be the first major sports event. In the meantime, in the UK, we had European women's football, we had the Commonwealth Games as well. So the general appetite for the event goer crowd possibly waned a little bit. There was a sizable request for refunds as well. So it's had an impact on the game. I think where we see the future, obviously 2026 is tendered for, and maybe it's been announced by the time we're speaking now, but the IRL is also working towards its next round of events. So the next men's, women's and wheelchair World Cups tenders are already in place as well. So I think probably never before have we seen that long-term plan and long-term commitment to those global competitions, and obviously the finance and revenue that they bring.
And we've got David Butler here from the European Rugby League, and I wanted to ask you about the thorny issue of a European club competition, the Euro 13s. There may or may not be people working behind the scenes now to try and get a European club competition going. It's obviously something that, if it does happen, you'd like it to be part of your inventory for sponsors and broadcast, but other people maybe have their eyes on it as well. So where does that all sit?
Yeah, so we've... Euro 13s sort of came and went before my involvement as an employee with European Rugby League. Obviously, I've been around for some time in a voluntary capacity, and there is certainly an appetite for pan-European competition. The Balkan Super League runs every year. Teams from Serbia, Bosnia, Greece this year, Vaclavi, Mad Squirrels from the Czech Republic have gotten involved in that as well. And there's certainly that appetite, particularly for some of the smaller domestic competitions where there's a lot of familiarity between the clubs. They want to go overseas and get that. So we know there's some appetite. Clearly international travel requires funding, and it's not just about sitting in a minibus and driving for 800 kilometres. If you're going to prepare for a game properly, you need to stay over, you need to prepare. So listening to the members that we've been speaking to this week, certainly there's some appetite to look at that. In the past, European Rugby League has focused some time and energy on a pan-European club competition, but probably more with a view to that being at the semi-pro end of things, and looking at potential for private equity investment to come in to seed fund that and to take it to a new level. So that's not come to pass as we speak now, but there's certainly some interest, and in some ways the sums of money aren't ginormous for us to do that, but I think it's something we'll look to explore on a more we'd say in the community level in the UK, and we can facilitate that. We can bring some of the expertise to it, and what I think we do very well is help to put a spotlight on things. So just to circulate back, the Balkan Super League is a great concept, but if you don't know, you don't know, and we know we need to get that message out to a wider group.
Yeah, and just speaking to some of the coaches and referees in Serbia who are there for the under-19s championship, there's some big challenges as far as since COVID about participant numbers stagnating, and meanwhile there's a lot of money being invested in the southern hemisphere and the Pacific. So what is there a kind of a theme that runs through all these leagues in terms of their challenges and the solutions, or are they all different?
Yeah, they're all different and they're all the same. I mean, post-COVID, generally we've seen an uptake a downtake in sport, particularly team sport, across Europe, and it's not just rugby league, it's all sports, because during that time people have realised that maybe they've got some other priorities that they want to focus on. So myself, going back, I was a referee in the running game for a long time, and COVID, without being able to do any sports, so I was running marathons and training in a different way, and then realised maybe I don't want to give up every Sunday to go and referee and spend time with family. So people are seeing that. We've also, in that gap where teams haven't been able to play for 2 years, David La in the Czech Republic explained, a lot of people have had kids or family events that have then moved them on from their regular rugby league commitments. So I think it's always going to be a battle to get teams out. We probably just need that next generation to come through, but obviously it's not just about players. You then need a new generation of coaches, of match officials, of volunteers as well to sustain that. So we've got some great resources for coaches and match officials that have been developed over the last decade, and there's about €1 million worth of European Union investment that's gone into that programme and delivery across Europe. And here in Serbia this week we've delivered a level 1 coaching course to 30 representatives from mainly across the Balkan region, but as far afield as Poland and Malta as well. And similarly, we've got some new match officials that have actually crossed the whitewash this afternoon in the first of our final under-19s games.
For the likes of Scotland, Ireland, Lebanon, Italy, what is the way back? I mean, are they all how far off the benchmarks are they? And and who's of those, I guess, who's close and who's a long way off?
Yeah. I mean, they've all been downgraded, Steve, as we were saying earlier, from full member to affiliate, and that is mainly based on the domestic participation requirements. So all of them need to re-establish their youth competition, and it's not a huge ask. It's 4 teams playing a home and away fixture, so 6 games each in one age category, and that starts from under 15s to under 19s. The reason for that is it obviously underpins an adult competition a lot quicker. They've also got the senior participation to do, so that is a 6-team league playing just one round each. That's 5 teams. So in that respect, Ireland, Lebanon aren't very far off. Scotland are in a rebuilding process, and they've had 3 teams playing consistently all the fixtures for the last 2 years. But I guess in some of the cases it's the bits that you don't see as well. So Scotland have run a wheelchair competition, their own domestic wheelchair competition, which doesn't necessarily feature towards that criteria, but it's a huge development, and nobody would shut them down for it. So we're working with them on their strategies and the plans to move forward. Some will bounce back quicker than others, and ultimately once they've achieved that full membership, they can come back in for contention for the World Cup. But as I said earlier, that's not necessarily the magic fix to all the problems. So Scotland later this year are playing the Netherlands in an international fixture. I think 99% of that squad are playing in the domestic league in Scotland, and what a great way to reward their enthusiasm and participation for rugby league. They commit to a rugby league club, they play throughout the season, and then they get the opportunity to represent the country at the end of the year. And that's nothing against the guys who play professionally in the English comps and the Australian comps that are proud Scots and very proud of their family heritage, and rightly so. But it gives you a different outcome, and what the likes of Scotland and Ireland need to do is consider both of those outcomes as they rebuild over the next couple of years.
David Butler here from European Rugby League. I want to finish with a little bit of a curly one. If all this speculation that's around about the NRL investing in British Rugby League and Rugby League Commercial or the RFL, has any thought been given about where that would leave the IRL and the various regional federations if suddenly all the professional players in the world were under control of this one body? Where would it leave those international bodies?
Well, yeah, I mean, you said it's speculation, and it's absolutely that as far as I'm concerned. Or if it's not, nobody's involved me in the conversation, Steve. So I think if it came to pass that the NRL took over, if it took over all of the all of the bodies, then I guess in some ways the IRL would need to be next and join up the circle. So I'm not sure I would necessarily advocate for one body running the entire sport, and it would certainly be new. We think about the large American leagues like NFL, NBA, huge commercial entities, very, very successful, but restricted to one country, albeit there's always a Canadian token representative in there, isn't there? So it's an interesting concept. You'd almost have a national global governing body, which is a bit of a paradox, isn't it? So I guess as long as it's speculation, we can surmise what it is. But
I think there's a lot of boring stuff you do that no one at the NRL can be bothered with.
Absolutely, yeah. There's so much boring stuff. I mean, we do a lot of the boring behind the scenes things, and in some ways, the pizzazz of the pro game and things like Origin and the senior internationals is great. But there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of admin that goes on behind the scenes that. And naughty letters that we have to write and things like that, which and I think that's sometimes if you've got one body who's responsible for everything, it then ultimately conflicts with itself. So sometimes having that, we see independent regulators, don't we, in industry and things like that. So perhaps that's what the I in International Rugby League stands for in some ways as well. It's that independence to just adjudicate when required.
Thanks for your time, David. Looking forward to. I really love Serbia. Looking forward to getting along to more matches in your schedule.
Looking forward to it, Steve.